My name is Janice L. Smith. I am 28 years old, and 48 hours ago, my entire life fit into 3 suitcases. I am writing this from the guest bedroom of my older sister Danielle's house. Across town, the apartment, furniture, and future I spent 3 years building with my boyfriend are sitting inside an unfamiliar silence. Until Friday morning, I lived with Mason, my boyfriend of 3 years. For the first 2.5, we were the couple everyone described as perfect. We rarely fought. Our finances worked. We wanted marriage, children, and eventually a home outside the city. Then Callie moved back. Callie was Mason's closest friend from college. I had heard stories about her for years, mostly harmless memories involving parties, exams, and terrible campus food. When she returned 6 months ago, I genuinely tried to welcome her. I was not threatened by friendships between men and women. Mason had female friends. I had male friends. Trust was supposed to be the foundation of our relationship, but Callie was not simply a friend. She orbited him. At first, it was late-night messages, memes, and "remember when?" texts arriving close to midnight. Then came emergency calls. Callie had a flat tire. Callie had a terrible day. Callie needed Mason to analyze a message from a man she had met online 3 days earlier. Our date nights became scheduled around her emotional crises. "She is lonely," Mason told me. "She is still adjusting." I tried to be understanding. Then the physical boundaries blurred. At group dinners, Callie squeezed beside Mason even when other seats were open. Their legs touched beneath the table. She leaned close to whisper things into his ear and laughed at his jokes before he finished telling them. I began feeling like an unwanted guest inside my own relationship. The first time I mentioned it, I kept my tone light. "Does Callie understand personal space?" Mason laughed. "She is like a sister. Stop making it strange." I let it go because I refused to become the controlling girlfriend he could complain about. But Callie began buying him gifts. A vintage album he mentioned once, an expensive leather watch for his birthday. When I questioned why she had spent more than I had, Mason became defensive. "She earns good money. Why are you trying to ruin a thoughtful gesture?" Then came the word he used every time I noticed something uncomfortable: insecure. Dinner alone at an intimate Italian restaurant? I was insecure. A deleted message thread supposedly removed to save storage? Paranoid. Waking after midnight to see him smiling at her texts? Controlling. The breaking point came last weekend. Mason planned to attend a music festival in Austin with several friends. I could not join because of a major work deadline. 2 days before the trip, everyone else canceled. First Rachel, then Michael. By Thursday evening, only Mason and Callie remained. I watched him packing at the kitchen island. "Are you booking separate rooms?" He kept folding shirts. "No. The hotel reservation has 2 beds. Another room would cost too much. I am not comfortable with you sharing a hotel room with a woman who clearly wants more than friendship." Mason finally looked at me. His expression held no reassurance, only irritation. "She does not have feelings for me. You are projecting your lack of confidence onto her. It is not insecurity to expect respect. If the situation were reversed—" "It is not reversed," he interrupted. "Callie and I have never slept together. That does not make this appropriate." I took a breath. "If you take this trip and share a room with her, I cannot be here when you return." I expected the possibility of losing me to matter. Instead, Mason laughed. He opened the refrigerator, took out a bottle of water, and leaned against the counter like I was embarrassing him. "I am going. I am not wasting the tickets because you cannot handle my friendships." He took a drink. Then he delivered the sentence that ended our relationship. "If my girlfriends make you insecure, Janice, that is your problem." I looked at him. Really looked. At the hidden smirk. At the certainty that I would apologize. At the man who believed my love guaranteed my obedience. "You are right," I said. He blinked. "What?" "It is my problem. I should stop expecting you to solve it." His expression relaxed into victory. "I am glad you finally understand. Have fun in Austin." Mason left for the airport at 5 the next morning. He kissed my cheek while pretending not to notice I was awake. The moment his car disappeared, I sat up. Then I began packing. The moment Mason's Uber disappeared at the end of the street, I got out of bed. I had approximately 72 hours before he returned. That was more than enough time. I started with the bedroom. I did not destroy anything. I did not tear his clothes, smash photographs, or leave an angry message across the wall. That would have shown emotion. I wanted to show absence. I packed my clothes carefully: work dresses, jeans, gym clothes, shoes, and the winter coat Mason always borrowed without asking. I stripped the bed of the expensive sheets I had purchased and folded them into a suitcase. The bare mattress looked strangely unfamiliar, as though the room had already forgotten us. Then I emptied the bathroom. My toothbrush, my skincare products, my hairdryer, the organizer I installed beneath the sink. Everything that belonged to me disappeared. The living room took longer. Many of the items looked shared because we had used them together, but I had kept the receipts. The television was mine. The sound system was mine. The gaming console was mine. The espresso machine Mason used every morning but had never once cleaned was also mine. At 8 o'clock, I called Danielle. She answered with a tired voice. "Is everything okay? I need your truck. And maybe your guest room." There was a brief silence. Then she said, "I'll be there in 20 minutes. Danielle had never trusted Mason. She once described him as a man who believed every room was an audience waiting for him to perform. I used to defend him. That morning, she did not say "I told you so." She arrived carrying coffee, moving boxes, and packing tape. "What happened?" she asked. "Mason went to Austin with Callie." "The hotel room trip?" I nodded. "And you're done?" "Yes." "Good." We worked without discussing the details. By early afternoon, the apartment looked hollow. Mason's belongings remained: his books, clothes, photographs, and decorative objects. But the pieces that made the apartment functional were gone. I sat on a box near the kitchen island and reviewed the lease. After the first year, we had shifted to a month-to-month agreement. I wrote a formal notice explaining that I had vacated the apartment and enclosed payment for my half of the following month's rent. Legally, I wanted no loose ends. Emotionally, I wanted nothing he could use to pull me back. For several minutes, I considered leaving a letter. I wanted to explain that boundaries were not control, and discomfort was not insecurity. Then I remembered Mason's face as he said my feelings were my problem. A letter would still be an attempt to make him understand. He had already decided understanding me was unnecessary, so I left no explanation. I placed my key beside the rent check. Danielle carried the final box toward the door. "You ready?" I looked once more at the apartment where I had imagined raising children. It seemed smaller now. "Yes." I walked out and closed the door. That evening, I sat on Danielle's back porch with a glass of wine. Usually, on a night like that, I would have been checking my phone constantly. Was Mason drinking too much? Was Callie sitting too close? Were they sharing the same bed despite the promise of two? Instead, my screen remained silent. For the first time in 6 months, my stomach was not twisted with anxiety. I had solved my problem. Sunday evening, my phone buzzed at 7:15. "Mason. Babe, I'm home. Why is the living room empty?" 1 minute later. "Where is the TV? Did we get robbed?" Then the realization began. "Why is your key on the counter? Pick up the phone. This isn't funny." "Where are you?" he called repeatedly. I let every call ring out. By 7:35, confusion had become anger. "You cleaned out the apartment because I went on one trip? This is childish." Another message followed. "You are throwing away 3 years because you are insecure about Callie. Grow up." Then came the command. "Come home and bring everything back. We need to discuss this like adults." He was not asking whether I was safe. He was not asking whether he had hurt me. He wanted his television, coffee machine, rent support, and obedient girlfriend returned to their proper places. I turned on Do Not Disturb. Monday morning, his tone changed. "Please call me." I didn't mean to snap. By afternoon, the panic became financial. "I cannot afford this apartment alone. If you stay gone, I could be evicted." For a moment, I almost responded. I almost reminded him that Callie was apparently worth the risk, but silence was stronger. On Wednesday, I blocked his number. 2 weeks passed. I went to work, exercised with Danielle, and watched my savings grow now that I was no longer funding expensive dinners designed to repair problems I had not created. Then Jessica called. She was Mason's college roommate and Callie's closest friend. "Janice, what you did was cruel," she said immediately. "Mason has been devastated. He has Callie." "That is not the point." "It was the entire point." Jessica accused me of abandoning him because I could not tolerate a female friendship. I asked whether Mason had told her what he said before leaving. "He told me you gave him an ultimatum. He told me my discomfort was my problem. He was establishing a boundary." "Exactly," I said. "And I respected it. I removed my problem from his life." Jessica went silent. Then her voice lost some of its certainty. "Callie is not helping him." I smiled without humor. "Why not?" "She said she is not ready for a relationship. She went home after the festival and stopped answering most of his calls." There it was. Callie had enjoyed winning his attention. She did not want the responsibility of having him. Jessica sighed. "Mason is moving into a studio. His credit is terrible. Can you at least help him pack?" "Callie is his best friend. She can help." I ended the call. Mason had chosen freedom. Now he was discovering that freedom did not come with my furniture, salary, or emotional labor. 3 weeks after I left the apartment, Danielle hosted a barbecue for her birthday. It was the first gathering I had attended since the breakup, and for a few hours, I almost felt normal again. The sun was bright. Music played from a speaker near the patio. I stood beside the grill helping Danielle arrange food, while her friends laughed around the yard. Then tires screeched in the driveway. Every conversation stopped. Mason's car rolled to a crooked halt near the sidewalk. He stepped out before the engine fully died. His clothes were wrinkled. His hair looked unwashed. The confident man who had left for Austin expecting me to wait at home had disappeared. He stormed across the lawn. "You!" His voice carried across the entire yard. "You think you can hide here?" Danielle moved toward me, but I raised one hand. I needed to handle this myself. Mason stopped several feet away, breathing heavily. "You blocked me everywhere," he said. "Who does that after 3 years? Someone who does not want contact." "You do not get to decide that alone." "I already did." His eyes flashed. "We were building a life, Janice. You emptied the apartment because I went on one trip. You went away to share a hotel room with Callie after I clearly told you that crossed a boundary. Nothing happened." Several people nearby turned toward us. Mason lowered his voice slightly, but the anger remained. "We had separate beds. I even slept on the couch one night because she was restless. You destroyed everything over a situation you invented." I looked at him calmly. "Is that why you came here? To call me insecure again?" His face twisted. "I came because you ruined my life." He began listing everything he had lost: the apartment, the furniture, the car he had sold to afford the deposit on a studio, the dinners, subscriptions, and lifestyle he could no longer maintain. Then, the anger cracked. "I am drowning," he said. "My rent is more than I can afford. I barely have furniture. Callie is not helping with anything." There it was. Not heartbreak. Financial panic. "You took everything," he continued. "How could you be so cruel? I loved you." "I did not take everything. I took what belonged to me. You abandoned me when I needed you." I looked at him for a long moment. Then I said, "No. I listened to you." His expression changed. "What?" "That night in the kitchen, you told me if your female friends made me uncomfortable, it was my problem." He stared at me. "You told me you would not change your life to protect our relationship, so I stopped asking you to." "That is not what I meant." "I know." I stepped closer. "You thought I would stay. You thought you could laugh at my boundary, spend the weekend with Callie, and return to the apartment with everything exactly where you left it." Mason's eyes filled. "I did not think you would actually leave." "That was your mistake." The yard had become completely silent. I asked the question he had been avoiding. "Where is Callie?" He looked down. "She is busy. She is gone." He said nothing. "She liked being the woman you chose over me," I continued. "But once you became single, struggling and available, the excitement disappeared." His jaw trembled. "She said she is not ready for a serious relationship." "Of course." Mason wiped his face. "I made a mistake. Yes. I will block her. I will never speak to her again. We can find another apartment and start over." "No." The answer came before he finished speaking. His sadness turned into disbelief. "You are not even considering it?" "I spent months considering whether my feelings mattered to you. You answered that question before you left." He reached toward my arm. I stepped back. "Please, Janice. I cannot do this alone." "You are not alone because I left. You are alone because you chose another woman's attention over my respect." He began crying openly. "I am sorry. I accept the apology." Hope appeared briefly in his expression. Then I finished. "But I do not accept you back." The hope vanished. His voice rose again. "You cannot just walk away from me." "I already did." Danielle stepped onto the porch behind me. "Mason," she said, "you have 2 minutes to leave before I call the police." He looked from her to me. "You really solved your problem, didn't you?" "Yes." I turned toward the house. "You can keep your friends, Mason. I am keeping my peace." He shouted my name once more. I did not turn around. A minute later, his car door slammed. The engine roared and the sound faded down the street. The barbecue slowly resumed. Danielle handed me a drink. "You okay?" I listened to the laughter returning around us. For the first time, the answer felt true. I am now. 8 months passed after Mason's meltdown in Danielle's yard. Life became quiet. Not empty, quiet. Peaceful quiet. The kind where I could sit alone in a room without wondering whether someone was hiding a conversation from me. I stayed with Danielle for another month, saved aggressively, and then purchased a small 2-bedroom house with a detached garage. It was not impressive by anyone else's standards. The kitchen needed new cabinets. The backyard fence leaned slightly toward the neighbor's property. One bedroom still had faded wallpaper covered in tiny yellow flowers. But it was mine. Every table, chair, and coffee cup inside it had been chosen without negotiation. I turned the garage into a workshop. On weekends, Danielle helped me build shelves while pretending not to notice that I measured everything 3 times. "You know," she said one afternoon, "most people only measure twice. Most people enjoy crooked furniture." She laughed. The promotion at work came 2 months later. My manager said my performance had sharpened dramatically. I completed projects faster, volunteered for higher-level assignments, and stopped appearing distracted during meetings. I told him I had fewer problems competing for space in my head. The truth was that I had spent months of my relationship monitoring Mason's moods, messages, and explanations. I had not understood how exhausting constant doubt could be until it disappeared. Mason's version of the breakup circulated for a while. According to him, I had been controlling, jealous, emotionally abusive, and incapable of accepting that men could maintain friendships with women. But the story weakened over time. People remembered that I had left quietly. They also remembered Mason arriving at Danielle's house, screaming across the lawn because I refused to pay for his apartment. Several mutual friends eventually contacted me. Some apologized. Others offered careful messages claiming they had always suspected Callie's behavior was inappropriate. I accepted the apologies without reopening the friendships. People who watch someone disrespect you and remain silent are not neutral. They are comfortable spectators. The last update I heard about Mason came through Danielle. He had started dating someone new, a woman he met at a bar who worked in event promotion. "She apparently has a lot of male friends," Danielle said. I looked at her. "You are enjoying that too much." "Just appreciating symmetry." I almost laughed. Mason had once demanded that I ignore the alarm inside me. Now he was living inside the same uncertainty he mocked. I did not need to witness it. I did not need him to admit I had been right. Consequences were capable of speaking for themselves. 2 months ago, I began dating someone named Ryan. He worked in municipal planning and owned more books than furniture. Our first dates were simple: coffee, a hiking trail, dinner at a small restaurant where the waiter forgot our appetizer and Ryan still tipped generously. There was no performance, no constant need to appear exciting. On our third date, his phone vibrated beside his plate. He glanced at the screen, frowned, and turned it face down. My stomach tightened automatically. The reaction embarrassed me. "Everything okay?" I asked. "My ex-girlfriend," he said. "She keeps contacting me from new numbers." The old anxiety sharpened. "Do you need to answer?" Ryan looked genuinely confused. "Why would I interrupt dinner with you to speak to her?" He picked up the phone, blocked the number, and placed it inside his jacket. "That would be disrespectful." The word landed like oxygen. Such a small decision. No argument. No accusation that I was insecure. No lecture about trust. He saw a boundary and protected it without needing to be convinced. Later, I told Danielle about the moment. She leaned against my kitchen counter. "How did it feel?" "Strange." Healthy can feel strange when chaos was normal. That sentence stayed with me. I began understanding that insecurity was not always a character defect. Sometimes it was an alarm. Your mind noticing inconsistencies before your heart was willing to accept them. I had spent months asking whether I was jealous, controlling, or unreasonable. The better question had always been simpler. Did I feel safe? With Mason, the answer had become no. Not because Callie existed, because Mason repeatedly showed me that protecting her access mattered more than protecting our relationship. He called my instincts insecurity, because that made them easier to dismiss. Mason was right about one thing. His friendships had become my problem. I was trying to force respect from someone who treated boundaries like obstacles. I was negotiating with a man who believed my willingness to stay meant I would tolerate anything. That was my mistake. But I corrected it. I packed my life into 3 suitcases. I left my key on the counter. I stopped demanding that Mason understand pain he had already decided did not matter. Walking away did not make me weak. It was the first truly secure decision I had made in months. About 3 months after I started seeing Ryan, Mason made one final attempt to reach me. He did not call. He knew I would not answer. Instead, he sent a message through a mutual friend named Rachel. She wrote carefully, as though every word had been negotiated before she pressed send. "Mason asked me to tell you that he understands now. His new girlfriend has a close male friend, and she keeps calling him insecure whenever he says the friendship makes him uncomfortable. He says he finally understands what he did to you." I read the message twice. For a brief moment, an old part of me wanted to reply. Not because I missed him, because I had spent so long wishing he would admit I had not imagined the disrespect. Then I realized I no longer needed the admission. Understanding the pain only after experiencing it himself did not erase the way he had mocked mine. I sent Rachel a short response. "I hope he handles his problem in whatever way protects his peace." That was all. I did not ask whether his girlfriend was cheating. I did not ask whether Mason had begun checking phones, questioning hotel arrangements, or losing sleep over late-night messages. His life was no longer a story I needed to follow. A week later, Danielle came to my house with the last box from her guest room. I had left it behind when I moved. Old photographs, receipts, a few books, and one sweatshirt I thought I had lost years ago. She placed the box on my living room floor. "That is officially everything." I looked around the room. The new shelves were finished. The faded wallpaper had been removed. Ryan had helped me repaint the second bedroom a warm cream color, though he still refused to admit he had spilled half a tray of paint behind the door. There was no trace of Mason here. No furniture connected to arguments. No kitchen island where I had been laughed at for asking to be respected. Danielle sat beside me on the floor and opened the box. Near the bottom was a framed photograph of Mason and me from our first year together. We looked young, happy, certain. Danielle held it up. Keep it or throw it away. I studied the picture. There had been good years. I did not need to rewrite all of them as fake, simply because the ending was ugly. But I also did not need to preserve the evidence. Throw it away. Danielle removed the photograph from the frame and tore it once through the middle. No dramatic burning? No. No revenge montage? I already won. She raised an eyebrow. How? I stopped needing him to understand why I left. That was the real ending. Not Mason losing his apartment. Not Callie abandoning him. Not his public meltdown in Danielle's yard. The victory was reaching a point where his opinion of me no longer controlled how I saw myself. For years, I believed loyalty meant staying until every possible solution had been exhausted. I thought compromise meant swallowing discomfort until the other person finally appreciated my patience. I confused endurance with love. But staying in a relationship where your boundaries are mocked does not make you loyal. It makes you available for further disrespect. Mason never needed me to forbid his friendship with Callie. He needed to care that his behavior was hurting me. There is a difference. I did not leave because he had a female friend. I left because he repeatedly chose that friendship's lack of limits over the emotional safety of our relationship. I did not control him. I gave him complete freedom. He was free to travel with Callie, free to share a hotel room with her, free to dismiss my feelings, and I was free to stop building a future with someone who treated my presence as guaranteed. Ryan and I are still taking things slowly. I like that. There are no dramatic declarations about forever, just consistent actions. He communicates. He keeps his word. When something bothers me, he listens before deciding whether my feelings are reasonable. Sometimes, safety is not exciting in the way chaos is exciting. It does not keep you awake. It lets you sleep. Mason once told me that his female friends were my problem. He was right. I was trying to negotiate basic respect with someone who enjoyed making me doubt myself. So I solved the problem. I packed 3 suitcases. I left my key on the kitchen counter. And I walked away, without destroying anything except the belief that love required me to abandon myself. If someone repeatedly calls you insecure, ask yourself one question. Are you afraid because of an old wound? Or are you reacting to a new one they keep pretending is not there? Sometimes your anxiety is not weakness. Sometimes it is the last honest voice in the room. Listen to it.